Last year, I did an address about naturalism and humanism. And while what I've prepared for you today is on a different topic, it's similar in that I'm indebted to Unitarians who post their sermons on the internet, as this address is basically my own thoughts woven around some quite substantial other sermons. I'd particularly like to acknowledge a sermon called Turning and Listening, offered at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Lafayette, Indiana, on the 8th of September 2002 by the Reverend Hilary Landau Krivchenya, and a sermon called Holy Listening, offered at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on the 31st of August 2008 by Keith Goheen. Here's me. Last year, I took a part in a 3-day seminar called Teaching with Heart, which is all about teaching about the environment with the planet in crisis. We've already heard this morning about how close to us our concerns about the planet are. The leader, Sue Lennox, ran a session on listening first up, because she thinks we can probably solve all the world's problems by listening, deep listening. Sue spends a lot of time in India, so it didn't surprise me when I read that Mahatma Gandhi had said, 3/4 of the miseries and misunderstandings in the world would disappear if we step in the shoes of our adversaries and understand their viewpoint. So after my experiences in Teaching with Heart, I decided to make listening more attentively and being present my goals for this year. And so I've been working on it. And to start with, I know in my own head that there's too much chatter. It's like static on the line. A friend of mine referred to this in a recent conversation as monkeys in her head. When she said it, I could hear them chatter. Do the laundry, write the article, finish the project, clean the fish tank, it's hot out, it's cool, I like this, I don't like this. That's the static on the line. You hear it most clearly when you stop to meditate. Does your head clear, or do you hear the chatter? Try it now. Just sit for a moment and listen. Can you hear the sound of my voice? The helicopters? The breathing of the person next to you? Any sounds coming from that Sunday club room? Or do you find the static on the line again? The chatter. This bench is hard. Where's she going with this? I can see where she's going with this. Oh, my shirt label's rough. I wish I'd had another cup of coffee. I wish I could put my feet up. And so on. To truly listen, here or anywhere else, requires hearing through all of that, and even further, developing the skill to quiet all that chatter. To listen and to be able to learn requires that deep quiet. The chatter's like a protective coating on our brains. Rebecca Schaefer, a communications educator and speech pathologist, says that when people sometimes worry that they're showing signs of memory loss, when in fact, they never actually absorbed the information in the first place. Now, of course, some of us really do suffer from memory loss, but did you ever have the experience of standing with someone who's trying to talk with you and somehow maybe you don't like what they're wearing, you notice something perhaps a little bit off on their shoulder, a string or something, or you're distracted by their choice of words or their accent? And if a tape were able to record what one were really hearing, the dominant sound might be of one's own voice. If later one finds one can't recall what the other person had said or recall their name, it was likely because one had not heard it and taken it in the first place. I know, it's happened to me. It is a skill to approach one another with fresh curiosity. I regret that there have been conversations in which I have not been entirely present. To be able to listen opens us up to a world of fresh awareness and connectedness. To be heard is to be given a place in the world, to be offered room to think, to connect, and to grow. To be truly heard is one of our deepest desires. It's beyond desire, it's a need. It's been called creative listening because it creates new possibilities between people. It's called generative because it generates aliveness. Eugene Gendlin named that listening which clears the static absolute listening. Thich Nhat Hanh calls it deep listening. Rebecca Schaefer calls it mindful listening. And Marshall Rosenberg and Jean Hoffman call it compassionate listening. Now, I do like to think of myself in such terms. I am creative. I don't know about absolute or generative, but I like to think that I am mindful, I am compassionate, I am deep. But am I listening? Marshall Rosenberg says that the practice of compassionate listening is the practice of breaking habits and automatic reactions. We Unitarian Universalists or Unitarians like to think of ourselves as free thinkers. To be truly free is to be free of automatic responses, of reflex reactions, and to hear and to think with freedom. We fondly joke that we have some trouble singing hymns because we are busy reading ahead to see if we agree with the words. And I know that was true for me in the last hymn when I read through it when I was choosing it. At first I thought, what's this all about? Ah, okay, I get it. But really, it's no joke. We're excellent critical thinkers, but sometimes our critical thoughts crowd the wire and prevent us from really listening to another person's perspective. They may use one word that sets us off into chatter spaces, and we simply stop hearing them. For example, have you ever heard someone use the word God and assumed that that person was a Christian? Or assumed that we knew what they meant by that word? Did you then assume that you had everything in common with that person? Or did you then assume that you had nothing in common? We are just as unable to listen when we agree as when we disagree. Simply keeping the judgment machine on ups the chatter. There are no fresh thoughts because instead we have firmly fixed assumptions in our heads. Suppose when that person said God, I simply listened. What I'd love to be able to do is, after listening for a while, if I had the courage to ask what that person meant by that word, and instead of judging their answer, simply heard it as theirs. Rebecca Schaefer calls this putting yourself in their movie. She means leaning into what the other person is communicating with your full being, paying attention to the way you would in a darkened cinema, eyes full on the screen, open for the next frame at every moment, feeling the Dolby sound. When we are busy judging, it's as though we have a frosted window between us and the other person. Suppose we were to open our doors. This is not to say that we should give up our critical thinking, but suppose we could simply receive one another, listen to one another, and know that our critical thinking will not abandon us, that we can engage in it at any time. It may seem like a risk to open up and listen, but the risk is simply that we will hear something new, different, and challenging. But how do we do this? Quiet our monkeys, turn off the static, listen with openness. That's what I've been wanting to do. So when June asked me back in January to do a sermon sometime in the future, I said, I'll do it on listening. And in the couple of months before it comes up, I'll really be dedicated to listening. But I find that chatter. And where I'm really at right now is trying to listen to that chatter so perhaps it won't have quite so much to say, and then let it go away. I've had some interesting experiences in the last few months because I talk a lot. And I've really been willing myself to be a lot more quiet when in group situations. Particularly this is true in my workplace. So rarely does our team of 12 people who work in 6 separate offices get the opportunity to get together. And whenever we do, we want to make decisions. Well, I want decisions to be made. I want to make decisions. I want to get moving. And I just kind of fill up all that space. And I'm learning not to fill up all that space all of the time. And it's great. It's really good. Although it's very hard at the same time.